let's get going. Welcome, everybody. Happy New Year. I can say it for the next couple of days. Wish you all the best in 2023. It's going to be a big year for 4D, and especially this year, I think. So there's a lot going on. And I'm happy to welcome you all to this v19 R7 feature release, or Ad and I are happy to welcome you all to that. So just quick overview. My name is William Taylor. I am the technical account manager and I head up the professional services team here in the US. And with me today is the person that makes sure I say everything correctly, Komoncharoensiri. He is the director of technical services here in the US and heads up the tech support team, and also is working on a lot of projects working around 4D. So he's got the firsthand knowledge of what's going on in 4D and how great it is. So, and welcome everybody, welcome you all, developers and users alike, 4D. Happy to hear you and happy to celebrate a 4019 R7. So, just a few ground rules about the way that works. So this is a 19 R7 release webinar where we are going to go through and highlight some of the main features in the 19 R7 release, the feature release that was released a few weeks ago. We're going to break it down by category: developer news, deployment news, 4D for mobile, 4D View Pro, and then 4D for IO, or the 4D Write Pro. And then after each time, we'll break and we'll have a discussion about, and we'll allow you to ask questions, and we'll try our best to field those responses. If we're unable to, we'll of course take it offline and get back to you, or revert you to the forums. But yeah, we want to. And then if you do have a question, feel free to put it in the Q&A section. That way we can manage it, allows us to more easily manage your questions. And also it allows us to, the Q&A section, we get a report at the end to see how things were answered and what the answers were. So it allows us to keep track, to make sure that we actually provided you with the appropriate information. And if we don't, we're human, right? So we get back to you and we correct any error that we do make while we're here. So I think that's it. Yeah, so let's get going. So as I said, our webinar is divided into these main sections. After each section, we'll take a break for your questions. And if a question comes up at any time, feel free to ask it and then we'll get in there. So without further ado, let's get started. First, let's go with developer news. So 4D already allows applications still running in binary mode to take advantage of class features by using a component, the component being in project mode, to create your own classes and use them from your binary mode application. So if you're still in binary mode and you want to make use of classes, you're still able to, by putting that class code in a component that's in project mode, and you're able to make the calls from the binary mode. And this feature came with tips and code completion to support your code writing. And to make the code experience even easier, 4019 R7 is bringing a new feature. From now on, you can visualize a list of all available component classes in the Method Explorer, so you can decide in a glimpse of an eye which function to use in your code. See, we have the component method here on the right. We have the component method, and then you click class one, you see exactly what's going on in the class. In the preview editor or in the documentation, you have that as well. So a lot more easy for a developer. And the file and folder commands, which appeared in 19 R7, enables you to manage folders and files on disk in a more modern and efficient way, we feel. And we watch the feature request forums and love your ideas. And when the developer community thinks that we fall short, we come through. And to make take this post by Patrick Emmanuel, for example. He asked for a way to append text into to files like he's doing in other languages. So, and we solved that by introducing file handles. And this was done with file handles. So you may be aware of file handles in other languages like C and things like that. And now you got them in 4D. And here, look at this code. This code creates this code has a constructor that creates a file handle, and that file handle will append to the log every time you write line. So pretty simple and pretty easy to use. You can now append directly to your files. So yeah, you can read and write text. You can read and write lines with automatic management of line breaks that you can define. So if you want CLRF to be your line break, then you can. If you want various different types of line breaks, you can go wild. And you can get the size of a document as well. And you can also read and write blobs as needed. So file handles are your friends. So, and listbox, say goodbye to the Alt key. So the title says it all. Starting with 19R7, there's no need to hold the Alt key anymore when you want to move several items in a selection from a list box. So this is, for us, this is a more user-friendly interface. This operation required, so before the operation required pressing the Alt key. So if you selected multiple elements of a list box and you wanted to move those elements, you had to press Alt, click in one, and then move them. And that actually is not the modern way of doing that sort of operation that people are used to on either Mac OS or Windows when they're managing their files and folders. So now now with 4019R7, you now no longer need to press the Alt key in order to do that. So select them, click one of them, and now you can drag. And you may worry that this may confuse your end users, right? If they want to press the Alt key and then something else happens, don't worry. For compatibility's sake, we kept the Alt key functionality defined at the way that it was when you do a multiple selection and drag as well. So nothing to worry about, just a new way, a new free feature inside 4D for you to be able to use. Super cool. And so 4D extension. So there's a 4D analyzer for Visual Studio's code. So 4D brought external source code editors support Visual Studio's code, allowing them to handle 4D code and provide them with standard functionalities such as syntax highlighting using the language server protocol. Now, this was implemented inside 4D to provide for many improvements in the method editor. Most notably, we now have a better tokenization in the 4D code editor. And one benefit of this was that we're able to have a VS Code extension in 4D called 4D Analyzer, which was delivered in 19R6. Now, 19R7 brings two new capabilities to that, to 4D Analyzer, the go-to definition and signature help. And go-to definition lets your Visual Studio's, your VS Code environment work like your 4D environment, whereby when you click the go-to definition, like in the screen capture right there, it jumps to the appropriate definition of a process variable, parameter, a class, what name you, whatever you need. And we also have the signature help. So the signature help provides, when you highlight, when you're typing your code, it provides either auto completion, or it provides the tip like the 4D method editor does as well. So if you're interested in using Visual Studio's code, there's no need to use Visual Studio's code, but if for whatever reason you want to use Visual Studio's code, you want to just pop open a file, feel free to, you can do it. And with your 4D analyzer, you're able to do it with confidence that you're typing the right code. Okay. Now, let's move on to a simple but powerful new feature. So design on Mac and Windows has evolved over the years. While black and white with sharp corners used to be the trend, as you can see on the left, rounded corners are now a major design feature in modern applications, as you can see from the control panel right there. So this approach, and applies to both operating systems and applications. So in order to help you with that, we've created in the user face the ability to have rounded corners. So now this is a small UI thing that can have a large impact on your design. So, and it helps keep your application modern and in line with market and OS trends. So you can now round the corners of static text, input text, thanks to the new corner radius attribute. And specifying its value can be done via the UI in the properties list, CSS, or in code. Okay. So very cool. And the toolbar has also been modified to modernize and to be modernized and standardized across all 40 windows. Now, when hovering over tables, fields, or relationship, helpful information is displayed in the status bar at the bottom of that screen. New in 4019 R7 is the display of the relationship name directly in the status bar. So you no longer need to open the properties window to get that. It helps you write your code faster. So that's it for the developer updates. I see there's a couple questions there, so I will get to them.
So this first question, how long will binary mode be around? Will it ever go away? Currently, we don't have any plan to drop binary mode. As you can see, if you are currently running Interpreted, you can run it anywhere, including on Apple Silicon as well. The issue will come when you try to compile your application. Now, you can also force the application to run in Rosetta on your Mac, even though your application is still in binary and compiled. I can only imagine it will happen at some point. We just do not have a real target timeline yet.
And I want to say it's not soon, right? There are many applications, there are thousands of applications, thousands of applications out there, hundreds of thousands. So running in binary mode, and there's no reason to make it go away right now. But the new features and a lot of new functionality is being only implemented in project mode. For example, classes, CSS and form is using CSS with your forms and things like that. So, and also Mac native compilation support on the M1 or M2 chipset is only for project mode. And then speaking of UI trends, Rudy asks, is it possible to have transparent windows? What do you think about that, Ad?
Not currently. Definitely, this is going to be something that I would encourage you to file as a feature request. I can see that there's so many trends out there in terms of UI design that transparent window fits into many applications. So yeah, definitely go to forums and add in your feature request and get more votes.
So now on to deployment news. So this is a feature for your big installations. So, and installations with an admin who is working with images especially. So share local resources between users on Windows desktop remote services with built applications. So if you're one of the developers who asked for a feature that allows for the downloading of local resources to a shared folder with the Windows desktop remote services instead of to the user account folder, then 4019R7 is bringing great news for you. So before, this is how it worked. Every user session in an RDS, remote desktop service environment, had its own local resources folder. Now, this is a potential waste of space, disk space for many developers asked for a way to optimize this. And now in 4019R7, we have a new XML build key or build to manage this. So this optimization results in the following. A time gain because the local resources are no longer downloaded from each server by each user, and a disk space gain, since again, local resources are not duplicated for each user in a remote desktop service environment. So, so it's a major improvement, we feel, to for people using built applications in the 4D environment or the RDS environment. So it's a short one, but a big one, we feel. So any questions on this or anything else we've discussed thus far? And now we'll get on to the 40 for mobile news. So the highlight of 40 for mobile is a set of the highlight feature from 19R7 for 40 for mobile, is directly from your mobile app, display real-time updates by embedding a web page served by 4D so now in your 40 for mobile app, you can now have a web area where you can display data, or you can display any sort of web content, anything served, any web content served from your 4D server. So in addition to having the convenience and using the powerful 4D backend with native abilities, you also have the advantage of leveraging the fast and consistent UI development offered by 4D tags, or whichever development environment you choose. So now you can create your designs with the technology that you want, create the user experience. The user experience remains seamless in your embedded application. You can get updated data showing in your application in a real-time environment in the web page, like for example, graphs and things like that. And you can keep your user data and offer an optimized user experience using sessions. So it may seem like a small feature, but it's a major shift in 40 for mobile. Now, HDIs are one of my favorite ways to learn and play with new 40 and 40 features. HDIs or how to eyes, or how to from the blog. So, and if you look at the blog, there's a new one that gives a real life example of a store. In it, you have an inventory and stock being served by just standard 40 mobile things. And you have the shopping cart, and that is being handled in a web area. And it's a really simple application, but it shows how a flow can work with the web area, and how you can have you can have your standard 40 forms. And then when you go to something a little bit outside of the 40 for mobile realm feature set, you can then add that in your web area. So it's really cool and quite intuitive as well, we feel. And the tech support team in the US has done it again as well. Nat played around with this feature and fully integrated an open source framework called Full Calendar to display a calendar inside of a full-fledged PTO, paid time off request application. Now here in this great tech note, you have the people in the organization, people in a people's table in 4D. You have their PTO requests, so the ability to make the request, manage the request, all in the simple 40 for iOS kind of purview. Now, after that, you can then display the calendar of the requests and who is going to be off in the 40 for iOS web area. So you have with it, you have a great demo and an even better document explaining how it all works together. So if charts and graphs were what was holding you back from taking the dive into 4D for mobile, here you go. Here is a way to leverage your web code inside of your 4D for mobile app. Now, and if you are interested in an app, please contact me, Ad, or your sales representative at 4D, and we'll definitely love to talk to you. So 4D for mobile. Questions on anything I've discussed thus far? So David asks, is there an XML key for local shared resources added to the 4D link file used to start the client?
So this feature is specifically added as part of the build application. So the information set to allow this feature to happen is not exposed through inside of the 4D link file. Therefore, you can't, nor we recommend that you go and make modification to that file to make this feature work. So the only option that you have is to use it through a build application process.
Now onto 4D View Pro. So 4D19R7 brings several new commands allowing to manage your table columns and rows more efficiently by adding or removing columns or rows depending on the user needs, and then filling them in with the data that you want. So using data contexts. So you can we have now VP insert table columns and rows. So you can insert your columns and rows, and you see you have little columns and rows there. You can VP table set column attributes, which allows you to set column attributes if you want to have calculations or things like that, or references to other cells in the document. So that's very powerful. You can also remove things as needed. So set them and remove them, both columns and rows. And that's great if you're using formulas, but what if you want to show data? Well, you can also create rows if you want to show data, and then you can use context with adding rows in order to fill in the data automatically as well to backfill any holes in your data. And if you have any question on that, there is a good how do I on the 4D on the blog on how to do that. So more control and a lot easier ways to manage your data automatically in 4D View Pro. And 4D View Pro is a great tool. We use it and we're working with a lot of people on it and the integration inside of their applications. The fact that it works so seamlessly between, you can work inside of your 4D environment, create your report, and then just quickly save it into an XLS format is really a major feature that people and end users that work with other people that don't necessarily work inside 4D really love. So if you're interested in bringing 4D View Pro into your application, let us know, and we're always interested to show you how it works and to give you a heads up. So, and now onto the 4D Write Pro. So let's move on to 4D Write Pro. Now 4D Write Pro has gained a massive amount of functionality over the past few years. And it's really positioned itself to being the way to create documents inside 4D, beautiful documents and from your data. So, and it's gone from just kind of a not whatever, but a very complicated embedded text editor to, the one-stop shop for everything to create your documents. So and with each new feature release, we keep rolling them out. So let's get on to the first one, which is the bottom carryover rows or subtotals. So, so imagine you have a big sales table potentially spanning like a big invoice with a bunch of sales potentially spanning several pages. Great order, right? So at the end of one page, you'd like to calculate a subtotal and carry it over to the next page and include that from the calculations on the next page and go on. And so on and so forth. So, and this is often necessary and sometimes even legally required when editing long invoices, for example. So 40v19 R7 allows for the inserting of a subtotal line at the bottom of each part of a respective table that can be filled automatically, which was a 19 R6 feature. And this can be done either doing either both interfaces, either the toolbar interface or the sidebar interface. The table menu, the properties menu, bottom carryover row, or the table menu for bottom carryover row, or by programming, thanks to the new attribute WK bottom carryover row. And to define this content of the cells for the carryover row, a new attribute, previous items, can be used with all the available minimum, maximum, summation, etc. for collections or entity selections. So really powerful way, really powerful and hopefully simple way to add complex subtotals into your document. And when a 40 Write Pro document is in edit mode, it is often helpful to know if it's actually been modified by the end user. So this information would allow you, the developer, or the developer, to know what actions need to be taken, or if the document needs to be saved when the form gets closed, or you can imagine for a more user-friendly experience. Nothing worse than making a bunch of changes and accidentally quitting something out without it being prompted. So the new document.modified property will quickly detect changes inside a document so that you can perform the actions accordingly. So either transparently by doing automatic saves, or by having a pop-up saying, hey, do you want to save now? So this new and straightforward property will quickly detect changes inside the document and perform the actions accordingly. Very cool. But please note, evaluating from a formula or a new image loaded from a URL is not considered a document modification. The document modification are modifications to, let's say, the body of the document and not necessarily the view of the document. So anything that changes the view of the document would not, the way that it's being viewed is not going to be a modification, but changing the text, orientation, things like that will cause the modification tag to be flagged. And once set to true by 40 Write Pro, this property is never automatically set back to false, even if there's an undo or an export action executed. So once someone modifies a document, it's always going to be modified until you, the developer, set it back to true. So this is actually a read-write property. So it's a read-write property of 40 Write Pro document. And unlike WK date modified, WK modified is volatile, meaning that it's not stored in the document. So just there's some fine print on the way that it works, but we feel that it's very intuitive the way that it works. It's a read-write property. It's set once it's always true until it's false. Well, it's false, and then if it gets changed, it's true, and then it's always true until you change it back to false. You, the developer, changes it back to false. So everyone loves formulas, and they are an integral part of 40 Write Pro documents. They allow for the integration of a lot of information coming from the database, making your content creation more intuitive and automatic. However, if you start to get long ones, you have a ton of formulas in your document. Sometimes it's hard to know what's exactly the document and what's the formula. So now in 19R7, we allow you to display your formulas as this F symbol, as a placeholder, indicating a presence of a formula to make your documents and your document creation more precise and transparent. And this can be done via the property list, thanks to the display formula source as a symbol property, a new element in the interface, or via programming, thanks to WK display formulas as symbol attribute. So nice way to help you make sure that you know what your end result may look like. And again, you can learn a lot from the tech notes. I invite you to all check them out as they come out every month. The team works really hard, and Brad worked really hard on this one. and as 4D Pro is the beautiful way to produce beautiful documents. So 4D Pro is the way to produce beautiful documents from 4D. Now, if you're making the switch from classic print selection way of making documents to 4D Pro, I highly recommend you read Ad's tech note. In it, you'll find some real gems and see how much nicer it is to work with 4D Pro. Great work, Ad. Thanks. Okay, so Tim wrote, in 4D Pro, you can have a subtotal row automatically appear with subtotals that is not at the bottom of each page, but is instead shown when the values of the row change.
Oh, yes. One thing to remember, everything is formula, right? So if the values change, the formula can recompute. And you can also determine when the formula will get computed also. So that's one of the nice thing about having formula everywhere in your tables, in your data context. So all of these things are live data. So anytime that the data is changed, the formula will get computed again.
So Tim asked, do you not have to have the subtotal row appear on every page?
So if you look at the way that I created subtotal in the tech note, it's a little bit different than the traditional subtotal or the one that Will just described. So those subtotal area appear right underneath the table itself, not at the end of each page. So if the table is longer than one page in my own implementation, the subtotal will only appear at the end of the table and not at the end of each page. So you can choose one or the other, depends on your preference.
So Tim wrote, 4D Pro modified attribute gets set when a user makes a change. Then you have the 4D Pro area to a field in a record. If you later load that 4D Pro area from the record, is the modified attribute still set to true?
So when you think of the modified property, it is a runtime property. It does not get saved along with the document. So this is a unique property that is loaded when you either have the 4D Pro on the screen or you actually make changes through code. When you save, the record, that information is clear out that by default it turns into false automatically.
So take your skills to the next level and get an in-depth look at how you can build even more efficient business application. Now available in the store, if you miss a live session of JPR, you can sign up to an on-demand session. And in it is 10 hours of intensive training where you'll discuss classes and beyond, extreme list box and subform programming, client server optimizations, and moving from Classit to MVC or Model View Controller. So if any of those sound interesting and you want to get this expert level training, feel free to sign up in the store. And you may ask, when is it going to have? When's the next one? Because it's on demand, whenever. That's the beauty of these on-demand trainings. So yeah, I highly recommend JPR's trainings all the time. We've all learned so much from him. And if you weren't able to catch the live one, this is the second best. So, and everything I learn about the new features, it usually starts with the blog and then playing with it once I get to the blog. In the blog, you'll have always descriptions, reasons, the way that it worked before, how it works now, and why. And a lot of the times why. And with it, you generally have a how do I, an HDI, that shows you how it's implemented, how to do it, and code that you can then use in your application. So my favorite way to learn. So I invite you to read the blog. It's an amazing resource for all of the new features. If there's nothing else, I'm going to say thank you all for your questions, participation, and continued use of 4D. And we look forward to talking again, if not before, in 3 months for the 19R8, the last 19 feature release. Thank you. Take care. Have a great day and talk soon.